the the reason why I ended up making probiotics in the first place was that John and I went to the World Parkinson's Congress in 2016. And
Uh-huh.
at that time, so he was 14 years into his diagnosis and he was starting to use a cane
Mm-hmm.
and having some trouble navigating through crowds. And uh, these researcher, it was actually a citizen science group called Clinic Crowd, was presenting published research from a scientist in Israel that showed that the sugar alcohol mannitol could stop the aggregation of the proteins. I don't know
Oh,
if you've
wow.
ever seen that, but and it could pull the proteins out of the brain of the mouse. And I was like, wow, this is pretty interesting. So I came back and I bought this little mannitol chemistry book and I start reading about this incredible molecule. It's a free radical scavenger. It's an osmoprotectant.
Hmm.
Um, it's used a lot in brain trauma. So, if you
Hmm.
have a concussion or brain edema,
Mm-hmm.
it's used for that. It's also used to help drug delivery into the brain because it crosses the blood-brain barrier.
Huh.
Anyway, the first chapter of the book was about there's a handful of microbes that convert glucose and fructose in particular
Mm-hmm.
into mannitol. And I had a friend who was a fermentation chemist and uh, had been in the probiotics industry for 20 years. And I sat down with him and I said, could we like make a team of microbes that could put this function back into the gut? And he said, well, I think we could. And one of the microbes actually happened to be a strain of bacteria called Lactobacillus reuteri that he had been doing a lot of work on, and he had a particular strain. And so
Mm-hmm.
we were able to prototype this formula in 90 days and give it to my husband. He started taking it about Christmas time. And so 30 days later, he was no longer walking with a cane. And 4 months later, he was able to navigate a crowd of 5,000 people at our daughter's graduation. And his UPDR score went from a 35 to a 20 and
Wow.
stayed there for 4 years. But we also had his microbiome data from before, and we could see that it had moved back closer to the healthy human microbiome. So,
Wow, that's fascinating.
so we made it available. We just let people try it. Not a lot of them didn't have Parkinson's, and people would say, "Boy, this really fixed my constipation, or it fixed my gut," and so we put it up on our website and let people buy it. Made it in small batches and didn't really advertise it or do anything with that. And then in 2021, after COVID, and we decided it wasn't too smart to continue collecting stool samples, and we had taken that idea and modeled these other formulas to, for anxiety and sleep and other things. And we decided to bring them to the market. But I wanted to do a clinical trial, but in Parkinson's, there are not a lot of agreed upon endpoints where you could say, okay, this was successful. Um, I mean, we did know with
Mm-hmm.
John, it moved his UPDR score, but UPDR scores are very subjective because every doctor is going
Right.
to.
They're interpreting the physical limitations a certain way. Yeah.
So, but I had some other data from a hospital system that showed that people with Parkinson's, it was looking at comorbidities of, I think it was
Yeah.
like 20,000 patients. And one of the top comorbidities was insulin resistance.
Insulin resistance. That's interesting. Okay.
And about 60% of the people had some form of blood sugar dysregulation, either hypoglycemia or hyperglycemia.
Huh.
And um, and we knew that it was converting sugars. So we said, okay, let's do a clinical trial in diabetes. And we knew that in Parkinson's, the lipopolysaccharide was one of the animal model things. And it's also an animal model in diabetes and in depression. And so
Wow.
we
Yeah.
decided to measure serum endotoxin or serum LPS and also measure it in the microbiome. And so the clinical trial was 90 days, significant movement in endotoxin, in the reduction in LPS. And then
Mm-hmm.
we unblinded at the end of the study and took some of the people who had been on the product and kept them on for another 90 days. And at the end of the 180 days, the LPS was almost entirely gone. So
Wow.
we had shifted the microbiome dramatically. And then in our microbiome data, we could see we brought the gut back to an anaerobic state, which is what it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to have oxygen inside. Um, and that allowed some of those really good butyrate producing bacteria to come back.